So here's a pattern that you'll probably find annoying. You spend months building the perfect execution framework, leadership loves it, the rollout presentation goes brilliantly, and everybody nods along enthusiastically. But 6 months later, teams are back to their old ways. Your beautiful framework is gathering digital dust in a forgotten Confluence page, and you're sitting there wondering what went wrong. Well, nothing went wrong with your framework, but everything went wrong with your embedding strategy. So here's the dirty little secret about organizational change. Frameworks don't fail because they're poorly designed. They fail because they're poorly embedded into actual work. Most organizations treat frameworks like they treat software installations. Build it, deploy it, assume that it works. But frameworks aren't code. They're human systems that require intentional reinforcement and behavioral change. Every rollout follows the same predictable death spiral. Initial enthusiasm creates momentum, early adopters embrace the new approach, success stories emerge, and then reality hits. Competing priorities surface, urgent deadlines pressure teams to skip steps, new people who join who weren't part of the training. The framework becomes optional during crunch time and then gradually fades into background noise. The embedding strategy was poor. When frameworks exist as separate processes rather than integrated workflows, they become the first casualty of any sort of organizational pressure. Teams revert to informal habits because the old ways feel faster under stress. Strategic consistency disappears. Different teams start interpreting the framework differently. New hires learn tribal knowledge instead of systematic approaches. Leadership loses visibility into what's actually happening, and you end up worse than where you started because now you have the framework theater on top of the execution chaos. So how do you actually make frameworks stick? Well, let's look at the strategy. Let's advance or expand this and walk through it. Step 1, integrate the framework into team rituals. So stop adding new meetings for framework compliance. Instead, redesign existing rituals to naturally incorporate framework elements. For example, transform weekly team check-ins to follow your execution phases. If your framework includes planning, execution, and review, well, then structure meetings around those stages. What did we complete this week? What planning do we need? What requires review? Use templates and agendas that reflect your framework structure. When teams automatically use planning templates with phase gates and ownership clarity, the framework becomes the path of least resistance. Embed phase transitions into natural breakpoints. Tie framework reviews to existing milestone meetings or sprint planning. Make following the framework feel like good project hygiene and not additional bureaucracy. Step 2. Surface framework in tools and workspaces. Your execution framework should be visible in every tool that teams use. Visual integration builds muscle memory and it reinforces new habits. So align project boards with your execution lifecycle. If you use Jira or Notion, create templates that reflect your phases. Columns should map to framework stages, making status immediately visible. Use consistent naming conventions everywhere. If your framework uses discovery phase or delivery confidence, then that language should appear in every tool that teams encounter. This builds a shared vocabulary. Create dashboards that make framework adherence visible to leaders, not for surveillance, but for making good execution patterns observable and scalable. Step 3, make frameworks central to onboarding. New team members are your ultimate embedding test. If someone can join and become productive without understanding your execution framework, it's not truly embedded. Include framework training in standard onboarding and not as optional education. Frame it as how we work here, rather than special process you need to know. Assign framework mentors to newcomers. Pair them with experienced practitioners who demonstrate the framework in action, not just theory. Create onboarding projects that require framework application with mentoring support. Build confidence and competence simultaneously. Step 4, spotlight execution excellence. Recognition is a powerful embedding tool. When you consistently highlight teams who exemplify the framework, you create social proof and momentum. Share case studies focusing on outcomes, not compliance. Instead of Team A followed all the phases, highlight Team A's planning phase caught a critical dependency early, saving 3 weeks of work. Create showcases where teams present projects through the framework lens. This builds skills while reinforcing framework thinking. Recognize framework innovation, not just compliance. When teams adapt the framework while maintaining core principles, celebrate that adaptability. And then step 5, review and refine it quarterly. Frameworks need regular maintenance. Without periodic review, they become rigid constraints or gradual degradations. So conduct quarterly health checks with active teams and ask them directly, is this helping you deliver better? Are there unnecessary steps? Where do you work around the framework instead of through it? Track leading indicators, not compliance metrics. Monitor, are planning phases catching risks earlier? Are handoffs smoother? Are success rates improving? Be willing to evolve based on usage patterns. If teams consistently modify aspects, those might be improvements, not violations. When frameworks are truly embedded, they stop being just tools your organization uses and become part of how your organization works. Teams develop shared instincts about approaching challenges. Cross-functional coordination smooths out because everyone speaks the same execution language. New people become productive faster because the framework provides clear structure. Execution becomes competitive advantage rather than operational struggle. Framework embedding isn't glamorous work, but it's the difference between organizational theater and organizational transformation. Your framework isn't ready when it's designed. It's ready when it's lived.